Hi everyone, Tristram here. We are back. Belle, how are ya?
Good. How are you guys? And Tris, how are you?
I'm well. I'm busy day at work, but wouldn't have it any other
Nice.
way. It's been a while since we recorded.
Yeah,
Not much has
yeah.
happened.
Not well, Melbourne impending lockdown. I spent 2.5 hours in a line waiting for a COVID test today. So that was fun.
That's the
But
unnecessary
yeah.
suspense we'll build for the next episode. Come back and
Yes,
find out
does
whether
she?
Belle is negative or positive.
Um,
What number
Even
what
if I
number
am,
test have you done? What are we up
this
to?
is like number seven.
I'm sorry,
Um,
everyone. I'm in Queensland. Sorry to everyone not in
yeah.
Queensland.
I'm probably just a hypochondriac, to be honest, rather than at any real risk, but
I
whatever.
think it's the right thing to do. That's our public service announcement for all of you on the
Yes,
road. If you're
yes.
feeling sick, go
Go,
and get tested.
don't go to the MCG, go get tested. That would be preferable.
That's moral of the story. But
Yeah, I'm not throwing any shade.
no shade whatsoever.
None.
But because we haven't done this in a while, we thought we'd mix it up and do something a little
Yeah,
bit different.
add a little bit of spice.
A little bit of spice in the insights which was spelled.
Hmm.
We are doing a Q&A. So we put out the words to you on Instagram
Yes,
the day before
yes.
this recording, asking for your
Hmm.
questions about what it's like to live with a disability, questions that you've
Yeah,
always wanted to ask us, but never
yeah.
have because you've been too embarrassed and or shy. Um,
Yes. Interestingly, most of my responses were from my family, but that's all right, guys.
Same, weirdly.
Yeah, we love the support.
Including yeah, look, it's a great series of questions that come through.
Yeah,
um
it was wonderful.
I'm still getting messages,
Oh,
so
nice.
that just means we'll have to do another episode like this
Round
after this
two,
goes. Yeah,
already in
let's
the works.
let's dive in. Do we just like ask ourselves questions?
I think so. Do you wanna take one for the team, Tristan, go first?
I'll go first. All right, let's go
Oh my
first. So
gosh,
I
wow.
was asked by someone, how do you not let your disability define you?
Ooh, that is a good one. That's a
It's a
good
very
one.
good question. I'll go first.
Go for it.
I think it's about recognizing that we're all very multifaceted. It doesn't matter whether
Yes.
you have a disability or not. We all have different parts to our identity. It's obviously a big part for us.
Very
Um,
true.
but the thing is, to recognize those other parts of our identity and not let
Yeah.
the disability part define everything about you.
So true.
Which goes back to the initial question. How do we do that, Belle?
Well,
Actually,
I think it's actually an interesting question that can be taken from a few different perspectives. I would say that there isn't a problem with defining yourself by a disability in certain contexts. Like for me, in some things here I'm bringing a wealth of things. A lot of that has to do with my disability, and I'm proud to be a disabled person having this conversation. But then there are other things like when I'm at uni, for example, or just out shopping where I don't want it to be
yeah,
something that defines me. So it's about having the freedom to choose when it's part of our when it's something that we bring forth and when it's not. And so that freedom, it's hard to safeguard in some contexts, but I think it's just about being a bit bolshy and being like, I am who I am, and I'm just going to do that, and what I decide is what kind of goes for how I'm defining myself.
very well said. Question answered.
Mm,
I'm not going to even
yeah.
tackle it because you answered it so well. So,
Thank you.
what Belle said, guys. Your turn for a
Yeah.
question, Belle. What's
All
next?
right. So we have, what's a common mistake to avoid when trying to be an ally? That's an interesting one.
Oh, it is an interesting one. I'll
Mm,
go first. I'll go first. I think it's the old slogan that we've
mm,
mentioned a number of times. Nothing about us without us. So don't
yes.
um, make any assumptions about what we want. Support us in the decisions that we're making. That's a really powerful thing. We have autonomy over our own lives, and so it's
Yep.
about supporting us in making those decisions, and respecting sometimes when it's a little bit difficult. Nothing ever goes perfectly. We need to push through, and yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Mine was going to be assumptions. Don't make them. I think that's the best thing to do. Just come from a place where you're wanting to learn and engage and you know, benefit from the experience of people with disabilities in how you're interacting with them. So yeah, I just think if you can take away any of your preconceptions, although it's very hard because society has like hounded them in, I think that's definitely the place to start.
Well said. Next question. I got some silly questions as well. Did you get some silly
Nice.
questions?
I did.
I got a question about how I keep my beard so lush.
I want to know. I'm kind of trying to bring my mo back. So
Bring the mustache through. Look, it's just a high routine regimen every morning. Just
yeah.
anti-dandruff. Because this is the thing. This is too much
Nice.
information. Anti-dandruff
No.
conditioner is great for the beard. True story.
Oh,
There
love
we
to
go.
hear it. Very
But that's
good.
not disability related, so I don't know why that question
Yeah.
was asked.
Well, when
But
I
there we
grow
go.
my beard.
There we go.
when I yeah,
It's good insight. It's good insight.
it's good to
What about
know.
yourself? Any silliness?
My one of my many brothers asked, "What is the world's easiest job?" Not relevant at all,
The
but
world's
sure.
easiest job. I don't know what the world's easiest job is, but I know the world's
Mm,
best job.
okay.
Other than what we're doing now, obviously,
Yes.
guys. The world's best job. I have a friend that worked as a travel agent,
Oh
and
yeah.
he literally knew of someone whose sole job was to travel the world, verifying that five-star hotels were still five-star
Oh
hotels.
my gosh, that's
So
ace.
paid to stay in luxury,
Yeah.
and live the dream and be paid for it. So that's the best job. I'm
That's so
just
good.
saying
I
that's
would
they can't beat it.
say, yeah, close second. Imagine people who do Michelin star ratings for restaurants and just getting to eat the best food.
I would eat so much food.
Also, interesting fact, total side note, but Michelin is like it actually comes from the tire brand. That's who started it, and it was a map that they gave out in France and being like, oh, these are the good restaurants to go in France when you come get tires from us and you're on your road trip. And then it like progressed into being one of the most famous like food rating things ever.
That's amazing. People
Isn't
came
that a fun
expecting
fact?
disability related facts, but we
Yeah.
bring all the facts.
There
We
you
have them
go.
all.
Yeah.
As much as I want to go down this segue because I
Yeah.
love food, I am going to rein us back in.
Okay. All right. If you must.
More questions. We've got more questions. I have another question.
Yes.
What's the worst thing about having a disability?
Ooh. Okay. I would say rather than it being anything external, for me, it's been those internal battles, you know, the fun stuff, good times, feeling, putting on myself a feeling of being lesser than, I would say, really struggling when I was younger with the way I looked, feeling like that constant feeling of having to prove myself, which I probably put on myself much more than anyone else ever put on me. So I would say it's those internal things, those prejudices that within myself I've had to unlearn, because it's easy sometimes to distance yourself from other people's prejudices, but the ones you hold about yourself, I think, can be hard. So for me, that would be the hardest thing I would say.
Yeah, here. It goes to the conversation we've had previously about ableism.
Yeah.
And so for people unaware of ableism, sometimes we internalize it. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
take all those prejudices and we reflect them in our own lives, and it makes us feel pretty shitty.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing to navigate that, and I think for me, it's the fatigue that comes with that. It's always having to want to prove myself to people. I have that
Yes.
internalized ableism, so I'm like, well, I'm going to prove that my disability doesn't matter. It does matter, but
Yeah.
I still get a chip on my shoulder, and I want to show the world. But for me, the other thing that I
Mm.
really struggle with having disability is the lack of spontaneity. So
Yeah.
I have to plan so much in my life, whatever I'm doing. And sadly, that means that if a mate invites me out, it's not always possible for me just to go and do it. I
Mm.
have to check multiple things about accessibility of restaurants, of
Yeah.
public transport arrangements, whether I can get a carer on shift. And so that spontaneity is a big thing. And I would love to be able to just go out into the world without having to
Mm.
plan something and just do
Yeah.
it like everyone
Yeah.
else. Um,
A
yeah,
1000%.
yeah,
With it just being an automatic that you know that you'll be able to get into a building or there'll be a bathroom,
yeah.
like without even having to worry about it. And those are such basic things. And the fact that for so much of our community is something that has to be a point of contention is so frustrating.
Yeah, So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, next question. You're up.
Next question. Okay. What, oh no, how can I make my workplace more inclusive? I like that one.
That's a very
Um,
good question.
yeah. Well, what's some ideas that I have? I think I don't know. I don't know how I feel about quotas. That's a conversation for another day. But I think that,
Yeah.
having people with disabilities on your staff brings a different perspective, like such a a wealth of, and for example, for neurologically diverse people, these amazing different ways of thinking, that can contribute to a workplace really well. I would say making sure accessibility is not an extra but a necessity. So it's not something that you get to choose whether you have it or not in your workplace. It should be something that just is there, without any point of contention. It just should be. And I would say, having a positive workplace culture around diversity, and that is, including more than just disability. But if you can create a workplace where it's okay to call out a colleague for using some language that's not appropriate, or you have positive conversations about these sorts of things, if you have that culture of uplifting each other and encouraging each other to be your best versions of yourselves when it comes to diversity and accepting others, that would be a really positive way to go about it.
Yeah, that's completely spot on. I gonna answer it partly by analogy. I was talking to a colleague today about the fact that I was once not allowed to do jury duty,
Oh gosh.
because I would need a carer to be in the box with me, and the courts were concerned that that would influence my thinking.
What?
But if we think about what a jury is, it's meant to
Oh
be the
my god.
perfect cross section of society.
Yeah,
And so I
literally.
think we need to take that thinking to the workplace and go, well, we want a perfect cross section of society in whatever workplace we might find ourselves in, because we all have diverse perspectives, unique takes on things, and that will only make a workplace stronger and healthier.
So true.
So the other thing is, I think it's having a really open feedback loop
Mm,
with managers, so that if something isn't accessible, it's
mm,
not necessarily a bad thing. The necessary thing is to be able to report on it and get it fixed. Nothing will always be accessible. Nothing will always be
yeah,
inclusive. As long as that's a loop where we can provide that and get it fixed, I think that's really important.
that's such a good
Some
call.
practical things. Accessibility
Yeah,
has been one, some adjustable desks,
yeah,
whether fatigue is an issue. So having,
yeah.
sick leave is obviously really important, how that's structured.
Yes,
If fatigue is
definitely.
a thing. I'm sure there's so much more. Look, guys, we'll
Yeah.
do a whole episode on this.
Yeah, I think
Well,
it's a good call.
yeah. Um,
Beautiful.
all right, more questions. More questions.
Yes.
Another question I was asked is, how did COVID impact us,
Okay.
and particularly those with disability?
Yeah, well, I mean, I could probably have a fairly short response to that. For me, it wasn't too much of an issue. I was at home with family, and for health reasons that I am at no extra level of vulnerability. So, as a person with a disability, COVID wasn't. I'm very lucky, fortunate in that it wasn't a thing for me. But I know that that was not everyone's experience at all.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that for so many people, isolation is a very real part of having a disability. And
Yeah.
so, in some cases, COVID exacerbated that with all the restrictions. But for many, it was life as normal. It was
Yeah.
um, more so giving able-bodied people a perspective of what our lives traditionally look like. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a silver lining that we can take from COVID, is to reflect on that feeling that we all had where we felt isolated during COVID, and think about how we ensure, we use technology like Zoom and Teams or whatnot, even calling people on Facebook, and using all these things that we used during that time, and we keep using them now, so that we don't let people with disabilities feel as isolated as they have done previously.
That's so true. That's a really good point.
It didn't
Um,
really affect our jobs though. We
yeah.
sort
Yes.
of we should point out, like, we're very blessed that our
Mm,
workplaces,
it's so great.
it's been really supportive of whatever we needed. So
Mm,
I do know of other people that have, outside of our workplace and in other jobs, have been let go, and it's really
yeah.
devastating what COVID's done. But
Yeah.
We can
I
get
was
through it
so
together.
fortunate. I was, brought on in the middle of COVID. It was mid-lockdown when I was hired with this wonderful team that we have. And I met everyone online months before I met them in person, which was very weird, seeing heads and then bodies attached to heads. I was like, what? But yes. Next question. I really like this one. What is the best way to initiate a conversation about ableism as an ally? What do you reckon?
Great question.
Yeah.
Look, I think the thing is, it can feel like an uncomfortable conversation to have, but so often people are really receptive of those conversations. And so not being confrontational about it, but just saying, hey, look, that's probably an inappropriate use of language, or
Yeah.
we don't like to say that now. Think of why that might be inappropriate in this instance.
Yeah.
So yeah, having a sort of general conversation about it. And if this is going to sound so brutal, if they don't take to it kindly, you don't deserve them in your life, or rather,
No.
they don't deserve you in their life.
Cut him.
That's more to the
Cut him.
point. Yeah,
Gone.
a tough thing, but just a general
Yeah.
conversation and
Yeah, I agree.
just to be upfront about it is probably the best way.
Yeah, and coming from a place where it's acknowledging that, in most of my experience with ableism, it's not really ever from a place of malice. There have been a few here and there, but from the majority, people just don't realize. And as Tris as I have talked about before, it's tiring for us as part of the community to be educators all the time. But for allies, you can kind of think of yourself in that way. You probably have just had more exposure to these sorts of ideas than someone else might have had. And you're really lucky in a position where you can gently be like, let's think about this idea. And, we perhaps haven't had to think about that before. And it's just great to get to share those experiences with someone. And being empathetic for them, and that they're probably not trying to be nasty. They're just needing a bit of a learning curve. And that's a good thing and a great, a teaching point.
Yeah, I think that's around that empathy is the statistic that 1 in 5 Australians have a disability. So
Yeah.
statistically, we all know someone that has a disability. So
Yeah.
having that person reflect on how it would feel for that person in their life to hear that sort of ableism is probably a good way for allow them to walk in the shoes and understand, or wheel in the wheelchair, whatever the whatever the unableist
whatever it may
might
be.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a minefield.
It's so I've got another question.
Okay.
Around what are some inclusive and accessible activities that people can do?
Okay. Well, as we said, like Zoom stuff, love a good Zoom trivia night, Zoom drinks, all of those things are fun and accessible. They also allow Tris and I to hang out when we're in different states, so they're good accessing each other across the internet and across states. What other? Minor shout out to AMP Camp, which is a wonderful camp for amputees aged 12 to 18 that you do all sorts of like high ropes courses and stuff, and they make it as accessible as possible for people with all number of limbs or no limbs at all. So that's a cool thing. But yeah, there's so many great community initiatives and organizations around accessible activities.
Yeah, my big thing in life has always been sports. So there are so many adapted sports out there for people with mobility issues that are fantastic. So obviously I'm going to do a shout out there myself. Power chair football is a big one in my life, but there are so many others. So reach out to us at Clickability, because we've got a whole heap on our directory.
This is what we do.
This is literally what we do. But good question.
Yeah, sadly, we don't just spend all day chatting to each other. We do have other activities as well.
Sometimes.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think we've had quite a few questions.
We've had a lot, and we've got really more. Good. But we'll probably save them for next time.
I reckon a round 2 would be awesome.
It's been good fun. So don't stop sending them through. We like answering these questions. We like having these discussions because it normalizes disability. And when you have that education behind it, you have a greater understanding of disability. So
Yeah, it's great. I like
A
the
profound
format.
note to finish on.
Yes, we love a profound note. That's what we do here. Profound
It's
notes.
we try, but I'll
Yeah.
see you next time, Belle. This has been
I'll
fun.
see you next time too. So good. See you, everybody.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.